What's up, guys? Happy Thursday. This is Off Field. I'm Nate Jackson. He's Brandon Krisztal, and this is brought to you by Accurate America.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
That's right. Welcome to the show, man. I'm ready to go.
Let's talk some football. Let's go. Fired up. I am fired up. You fired up?
You should be fired
Are
up.
you fired up?
This is Off Field. I'm Nate Jackson. You're Brandon Krisztal. Nice helmet.
I don't even know the last time I put a football helmet on.
Does it fit you all right?
You know, actually, I do know when.
Yeah.
The announcement about the high school helmets,
Oh, yeah.
I put one on that day.
Those Axiom.
Yeah, the Rydell, and you're wearing Rydell. Am I wearing Rydell? Yeah. The Rydell Axiom.
Technology's changed quite a bit.
I saw where, they're starting to hand them out, the Broncos, to all these schools, every school in the state except for a handful, like 6 or 8. It's some red tape they're getting through. But like Arapahoe, where former CU buff and longtime NFL player Tyler Brayton's the head coach, they tweeted theirs out. It's a cool looking helmet. And every high school player in the state is going to get a helmet provided by the Broncos. Yeah. And so even though these ones are still cool and we're better than, the one Red Grange wore or whatever, Floyd Little, there's still, it's not the same.
Well, the chin strap's not super tight on that one.
Well, no, this one, I'd probably have to adjust the chin strap. I'd probably get one of the thicker ones like I had when I played.
Yeah. Well, you got like the kicker one. That's just like.
Mostly, yeah.
It's only got one snap. See how mine has.
Yeah, you got to go 2 snaps.
Right here, Andy.
This is a
If you
kicker punter.
If you could.
I see
All
your
right.
second snap.
Well, yeah, I got 2 snaps. One up
Yeah.
here, one
Oh,
here.
you got-
Secures
you
it
got
to the
these.
head a little bit.
You got to get them up there.
Yeah. And this was the helmet that we used to wear. This is an actual game helmet
Yeah.
that I'm wearing right now. If
This does not feel
someone
like a game
could
helmet, but maybe.
show that, but okay, we're good.
I'll just keep sitting here like that.
There we go.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, this is a game helmet. And we used to get those given to us at the end of the season. And I don't know how many teams do that.
Will they
but
take them out of your check or no? Because
No.
like your jersey, if you give that away, it comes out of your check. You don't even realize.
Yeah,
it.
the game jersey.
Yeah.
But they would give us a game jersey at the end of the year to keep that
Cool.
too, and it wouldn't come out of the check. We could buy extra jerseys and whatnot, but the Broncos were always very generous with equipment stuff. Like a lot of teams, like you'd go back to the equipment room and ask for a new pair of shoes or something. They'd be like, sorry, you already more gloves. No, we can't give you a new pair every couple days. The Broncos, Chris Valenti, who is the equipment manager there, who goes by Flip, is the best in the business.
The best.
And was always very generous with the stuff, the inventory.
There's a great story that Kenny Smith likes to tell. This is previous ownership, a couple ownerships ago for the Nuggets, I believe. They were notoriously cheap. And so Kenny ends up at the end of his career, mind you, he'd won a couple championships with the Rockets and then played a couple other places. And he needed more socks. I know he gave you socks the other day. He's like, yeah, that was the other day. I need some more socks. Yeah. And they wouldn't give him socks. They said it was like crazy how much they would skimp on stuff. And teams, I think, have done that forever in certain parts of pro sports. It's changed though now because of the CBA and all this stuff about, there's accountability in the NFL with that player.
Oh yeah,
the player survey where it's like this team handles this well, family, food, the training center, the locker room, the stadium, whatever, travel. And the Broncos want to be first in all those. That's why you'll see them continue to score really high on it.
Well, yeah, they're building a new facility.
It's going to be awesome.
Spending a lot of money. You mentioned the helmet initiative. That ain't cheap. I actually spoke with I'm doing a more in-depth story about this one, and I'm speaking with a couple coaches around who are participating in the program. I spoke with one coach, Ryan Goddard, yesterday, who is the head coach of Pueblo South. Okay. He has been there for 16 years, and he was talking about the program and what a difference, just what a inspiration it's been, and how everybody's super excited about it there. They spread the helmets out over 4 years. They're going to get 70 of those Axiom helmets.
Yeah, I talked to a couple different people when the story first broke and was going to write about it, and then it ended up not getting put together. But I talked to Dave Logan, best coach in the state. And look, he's at Cherry Creek, but they don't get as much money as other programs do. They raise a lot of their money, if not almost all of it, from their booster club, which we understand Cherry Creek's demographics are what they are. But to know that that's one less thing you have to worry about. And then a guy that you used to work with, I used to play a lot of basketball with, but Kyle Reese, who worked for Dave for a long time, was a head coach at Eagle Crest, is out of coaching right now. Some folks may hear him on the radio on the Fan. Kyle said the hardest thing was helmets. Like that was the biggest challenge. Was getting new helmets, making sure they're safe and certified. That's the other thing about this program is not only are they new state of the art, they're going to keep getting new ones and they're going to keep being recertified. And so they'll be replaced as needed. I think that we'll see almost every pro team and big college team in the country start to try to mimic this program, which is going to be great for kids.
I spoke with a rep at Rydell, and she said that no one had ever done this before, and the Broncos had this vision, reached out to them, and they made it happen. But since that's happened, a lot of teams have reached out to them, a lot of charitable organizations in different parts of the country wanting to do a similar program. So not only is this great for the state of Colorado, but it's being, like you said, mimicked throughout the country. So the Broncos, once again, cutting edge.
And we want to see football grow, right? We want to be talking about football and know that the best athletes are playing football as other sports continue to
Shout out to Alyssa.
All right, thanks, Alyssa.
Normally tuning into Off Ice. This is my first impression of you. Solid start, 10 out of 10.
That's what we're going for. I mean, we could bag on the franchise letting Miko Rantanen go and all that, but we're not going to do that. Although,
do the Off Ice folks wear helmets? I don't know, Alyssa. Maybe
they're old school. They're not, you didn't have to start wearing a helmet until whatever 19.
Just like busted up teeth and stuff like that. I mean, back in the day, the football players didn't wear these. They had the leather helmets, and their faces were just smushed in.
Yeah,
these
had
face masks.
Kind of like UFC fighters.
Certainly help. All right, let's get into it, BK.
Okay.
We're going to talk Broncos today. Rookie mini camps are starting today, right? Is that right?
Some teams already had their rookies in, I believe.
Okay.
Last weekend, so you kind of have the option. Yeah. They always do it right now, kind of leading up to Mother's Day. I've missed it the last couple of years. Last year I was in Minnesota for Nuggets round 2 playoffs. 2 years ago, I think I was in the mountains. So I missed the availability, but they're going to be on the field. That's why they have not only Blake Stenstrom, the former Valor quarterback who finished up at Princeton after going to CU, but then Desmond Ridder, former 3rd-round pick who looked pretty terrible when we saw him in the preseason.
Yeah.
He's just, I don't know. It's like his career's
gone.
He's
like here?
This. He's here for the weekend.
Desmond Ridder.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Desmond Ridder. So former 3rd-rounder with Atlanta, has been with Arizona, has been with Green Bay.
They need a third quarterback. I mean, they need a practice squad guy.
They've got Sam Ellinger that they signed also. Mm-hmm. So this is just to get him through the weekend. That way they're not having to ask Bo to come do it. Certainly Stidham's not going to do it. Even Sam Ellinger's not going to do it. So it gets you through the weekend, maybe gets you a 4th guy to camp just to have one more arm. You remember a couple of years ago when the tight end from Ohio State tore his knee, Jeff
Hireman,
3rd-round pick, tears his knee. And after that, the Broncos and other organizations were like, why are we getting these guys on the field? Like they're about to get into OTAs with our vets.
Yeah.
But then there's some old school coaches that are like, no, let's get them out on the field. Let's do some football stuff. The problem is, and you can understand this, some guys are trying to make the team this weekend because they're just invited to the weekend.
Yeah.
And so your level of competition isn't all like guys are going to ramp it up, but
it's a tricky thing because everyone's learning it for the first time. They're all rookies. And so typically when you go to camp with the rest of the team, the rookies follow the veterans because the veterans know what they're doing. They know the system. They know the pace of practice. They know the plays. So they get out there and they run those plays, and the rookies can watch, but they can't watch anything here. And do they have the numbers to even do 11-on-11 or 7-on-7? So it's probably a lot of classroom stuff, a lot of meeting room stuff, and then some on-field walkthroughs and then position type drills and things like that. Maybe some one-on-ones, but
you're not going to be anywhere near enough players to do a full. I mean, because you got your 7 draft picks and like 15 undrafted guys, give or take, and then these handful of like weekend invite rookie. But so
who are trying
that up, that's 30 total player.
Trying to make an impression.
One of them's a punter, so he's not going to be doing much. But also they use the weekend. Like you said, classroom work matters. And then just all the life stuff, because the Broncos, unlike other teams, haven't brought all their rookies in. Some teams will bring in all their draft picks, and the Broncos kind of used to do that. But they bring in the 1st rounder, and the 1st rounder leaves typically. So this is, hey, let's talk to you about where you're going to stay through the spring and summer, about, go through all the way the money works. That's why they have signed a bunch of these guys. So they're getting money in their pockets. third round on are all signed. So from Pat Bryant all the way through the seventh round with the tight end, it's only the first rounder and Jahdae Barron and second rounder RJ Harvey that aren't signed. They're almost certainly here. I just don't know if they'll do as much on the field until the contracts agreed to, but they're slotted, so it's going to come soon.
Well, we're gonna that's what she said, but we're gonna talk about those rookies, their impact. And I wrote an article, guys. It's up on the Gorilla Sports website right now about whether or not Sean Payton. I'm gonna take this off.
Okay.
There we go. That's a little better. Yeah, my hair is looking real good right now. The helmet head. We'll leave this right here. I wrote an article, guys, and it's about whether or not Sean Payton is going to take his own advice and run the damn ball. You remember that Sean Payton wrote "run it" on the play sheet when they played the Chargers late in the season. He knew he wanted to run the ball in theory, but second half came around and he didn't throw the ball much. But that's just kind of Sean Payton. We're going to get into this in a little bit. I want BK's take on this. But, guys, this is a really special moment for me. I had a tweet that was retweeted by Adam Schefter. And if I retweeted his retweet, and then he retweeted my retweet. And there you're looking at it. This is about Travis Hunter graduating today at CU. Pretty cool moment. There's a little clip of him and some of his buddies, dressed in their graduation attire, in their garb. Travis Hunter was a 3.6 GPA student, cum laude, whatever the heck that means.
It's like honors.
No, I know. Come on. Okay. Sometimes it's just rhetorical.
Yeah, I get it. I was like, wait, you do know what that means.
But I tweeted, how many Heisman Trophy winners have their degrees? Shoot. How many NFL players have them? The answer is not enough. This shows what a special young man Travis Hunter is. Something tells me this football thing is going to work out for him, but if not, he'll be just fine. There's Travis. Before we talk about the graduation and stuff like that, it is funny how you just go to tweet just like seemingly benign, nice tweet, and then you get people attacking you for it, calling you names and saying, "No, how easy is that?"
What's the negativity?
Well, I don't know. Saying it's online classes, it's easy, everyone graduates, blah 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 blah. Some people posting some things about Heisman Trophy winners graduating. Apparently, a lot of them do, which was news to me. But I know that a lot of my friends who played in the NFL didn't graduate. So, and a lot of guys don't because of the requirements to get ready for the draft.
Yeah.
To start training, to get an agent, to go train in a different city. And a lot of guys leave their school steps before graduation and never return. So I just think it was really cool that a guy like Travis, who's a transcendent talent, has been able to maintain excellence in the classroom as well. I think it should be celebrated. He seems like an awesome dude.
Yeah, he's been academic All-American. I think each of the 2 years that he was in Boulder, I didn't track his academic successes at Jackson State and what the classwork looked like there. I don't think you can be overly critical of the curriculum because college has changed.
Yep.
You're not always in the classroom anyway. And so if you're assigned classes and you're excelling in them, then that's a credit to you. And it also shows that you can finish something. There was a stretch, and it may have been all the way up until his last year in New England, but I remember talking to Pat Kerwin, who does afternoons on Sirius XM, that Bill Belichick went out of his way to draft kids and sign free agents out of college that had their degree, not because it made them smarter, just showed that they had the wherewithal to start something and finish it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that it's a credit to Travis. And more broadly, I saw last week where they tweeted that all 90 kids or however many kids it is in the Buffs program, either currently or on the last year's rot, whatever, are above a 3.0. So for all of the critics of Deion Sanders, and we understand why you may be, if you're going and every single college is tasked with getting these guys through school, I understand that it's changed, and the NIL thing has certainly changed it. Props to what they got going on in CU, and yeah, props to Travis Hunter and his other teammates that are walking today.
Yeah, that stat that you said about all these guys with over a 3.0, pretty special. I mean,
yeah,
because what percentage of those guys are going to play in the NFL?
Not a lot.
1 or 2, right? Maybe 5 or 6 of those guys, and maybe 3 or 4 of them have extended careers, right? It's pretty rare for a group of 90 guys. And so you are going to need some life skills. You are going to need some intelligence. Whether or not you're going to need the degree itself to get a job, that's debatable. A lot of people in my mentions talking about how you don't need a degree these days and all that. But like you said, it does show that you can see something through. It does help to have it. And these guys are going to need the money someday. I know NIL has changed the landscape there quite a bit, but because before you leave college with nothing in your pocket, some of these guys are leaving with something, but most guys aren't high grossing NIL guys either. I mean, this is Travis Shadur, maybe there's 10 guys who have $1 million, but the most of these guys are not making squat.
No, they're if they're lucky, it's like what they have at Utah, where there's a local dealership that's giving everybody an F-150 kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's great. You got a $50,000 truck or whatever it is. And I don't even know if they
a
get own it
dealership
or
gave
lease it.
everyone an F-150 on the team?
I think so at Utah.
Holy crap.
Yeah. But to me, that's like the NIL gets so weird, and we don't get too bogged down in it. But paying Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders to promote your brand, Gatorade or Accurate America, that's using their name, image, and likeness to promote your product, your business. And then there's also the university now can sell the jersey and put Sanders on the back of it without there being any backlash, or put Hunter on the back of a jersey. But then there's also the collective, and that's where it gets kind of murky, because if you're giving it to everybody, you're saying, okay, the entire team is representing our dealership, so we can do a big picture of the team, and that counts. It's when the collective is just like, oh, you're going to transfer from Wyoming to Colorado. Well, we got $50,000 from our collective that's just going to pay you.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I think they're going into this legislation with Nick Saban and this Texas Tech booster. They'll probably wrap their arms around the collective and separate it out more to where it's okay. If they make this with your name on it, you get this, and
we'll
see how they
sure.
regulate it a little bit. But you're right, though, it's only a handful of guys who are getting real cash.
Yeah. And I'll say this about Travis. I mean, say what you will about how difficult it is to graduate, but he wants to play both ways in the NFL. And a big question, and I've spoken to some coaches who had a lot of success in the NFL about Travis, and the question would be the mental workload. Is he able to digest both playbooks? Is he able to withstand double of the mental load, not just the physical load? We know he's a special physical specimen. He doesn't bleed blood. His heart rate never raises. He never sweats. But mentally, is he able to digest two playbooks to the point where you can put him out there on the field both ways and feel confident that he's able to manage it? Showing that you can manage being a Heisman frontrunner at the same time as being an excellent student shows a future coach that you can. And I think that it's just indicative of the type of mental capacity he has to compartmentalize a variety of things at the same time while being excellent at both of them.
Well, and that's the one thing that he kind of talked about leading up to getting drafted is the way he spends his time. And best we can tell, he obviously hangs out with his fiance. He's on Twitch a lot, playing video games. And
just like you.
Not as much as Travis, on there significantly more than I am. And that's about it. We never saw stories of him really being out or out and about or going to runway shows in Paris or whatever it may be. I think because of that, if this cuts into his Twitch time and his fishing time,
Twitch time,
you kept harping on it. I'm not saying that it's not accurate, but about how there's only so many hours in the day during, when you get into the meat of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, and you've got to be in one meeting or the other. You can't be in both, but you can spend more time on Mondays after you get your treatment. Tuesdays, when the quarterbacks are going through the game plan, you can also be in the building. It's going to take a little more work for somebody to have to dedicate time to him.
Yeah.
But these coaches, they have lots of quality control help and OCs and QB coach and a lot of redundancy that I think if there's a Travis coach for a given week, and maybe the way it works is because we haven't spent a lot of time thinking about this. What if he flips each week? So he's primarily in the defensive meetings. So every other week, a receivers coach, quarterbacks coach, quarterback, and he's probably meeting with the quarterback anyway. But that way it's like, okay, so it's like A week and B week. So week one, it's your offense this week, and then we'll supplement the defense. Next week, your defense, and then you're getting more of it versus it's going to be mostly defense, and we'll figure out. I'm sure that it's something Liam Cohen's working through with his staff.
Right.
But how would you approach that? Because this is just popping in my head now. Instead of going, you're all this with a little bit of that, offense this week, defense. I'm saying as far as meetings go, just meetings.
Yep. One thing that folks haven't really talked about with Travis and his desire to play both ways is the body movements on the field for each position, right? I know when I became an NFL wide receiver, it's so much about technique, and your technique as a receiver is leaning forward, really tight sort of technical perfection of route running. You never run backwards ever. And so your body gets locked into this sort of forward leaning, really efficient route running technique. Whereas a DB is completely the opposite. A cornerback is leaning back, running backwards, fluid, moving, hips swiveling all around the place. And when I think about going back and forth between those two body movements, I wonder what kind of challenge that will present Travis Hunter on a daily basis, because DBs go backwards, receivers go forward as fast as they can with a body lean that they need to be able to get DBs to flip their hips.
I'm not an exercise science expert,
but
I
you
didn't
did
major
stay
that.
at a Holiday
I did
Inn
stay at
last
a
night.
Holiday Inn Express. But I remember, and this isn't apples to apples, but Brady Quinn would chart how many times he dropped back during practice to throw the ball or whatever, even just going through.
Why?
He was because when practice was over, he then spent 15 to 20 minutes doing the exact same thing the opposite way, like he was left-handed, so that his body was symmetrical.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you play receiver forever, you're going to work through receiver movements. If you play DB forever, you're going to, like you just said. But because he's doing both, is he actually more well-rounded? Sort of like the idea of, if you're just a pitcher and you always pitch and you don't play other sports, you don't even play other positions,
His body
your body
will
can only
be
do one thing. I'm saying,
yeah, his body will be
balanced.
less crooked or whatever, but will he be an effective route runner? I guess that's what I'm wondering, because the longer you do it, the more your body gets bent into the position that makes you more effective at your job. Linebackers, offensive linemen, these guys are down, right? They're always bent over. DBs aren't. And when I think about Champ Bailey coming into the receiver room, which he did, he wasn't a polished route runner. He was just a freaky athlete, because his body lean and his body movement was not like those of other receivers, because he's just so used to backpedaling and flipping his hips and running in ways that's not receiver-like. Receivers, full speed, sprint straight ahead, stick the foot in the ground, come back at an acute angle. You never really do that as a DB. You run backwards and come back forward at that angle, but you're never running full speed sprint, stick your foot in the ground and turn your whole body and go this way, or try to fool people. The DBs aren't really trying to fool people with their body lean. I don't think this sort of thing has ever really been tried the way they're going to try it. And this is just one thing that I'm thinking about that I don't know if we've discussed.
Yeah, and the other part too that we haven't spent a lot of time discussing, and we focused on their GM's philosophical things about football, that part of his press conference, is they didn't trade up to only play on one side of the ball.
Yeah.
They're obviously going to try to make it work on both sides as best they can. I'm sure they have a vision for him to be, I think, primarily a receiver first, or we'll see how it goes.
I would think it was be the opposite.
Maybe so, because they need more help on defense when you got Brian Thomas. But I'm excited to see the experiment, because it feels like whatever it is, there's a commitment. I'm just saying, they didn't go up to 2 to just play him a little on one side of the ball. They're going to try to maximize it where it makes sense. And
hopefully not his rookie year, though, because why try to do that right off the bat? Why not initiate him into one side of the ball, let him learn that playbook, and then start to ease him into the other side as the season progresses? It's a first-year head coach. That's my concern, is that they don't have the right vision for him. I hope they do. I hope they ease him into it. I know that he's a special kid, but to me, let him digest one of the playbooks before you throw the other one at him.
what do you think's harder, to come in as a rookie as a receiver, or come in as a rookie as a corner and
Probably a
be
receiver.
effective?
Probably a receiver. But
I don't. I mean, but you look what Brian Thomas did last year.
Yeah, no, he had a great season. But defenses are easier to learn. They just are. The playbook's about this big versus an offensive playbook that's that big. Defense is either man or zone.
Right.
That's it.
And you can be protected by the people. When I say protected, you'll know that you're in the right spot almost every time by the nickel that's inside of you, or the safety or linebacker, whoever's closest to you.
A lot less thinking on defense. A lot more reacting. And Travis Hunter's a transcendent ball hawk, reactor, instinctual player. And I think that's why he'll fall in on defense a little more seamlessly than on offense. And so I would start him for these first couple camps, put him on defense. Yeah. Sprinkle in some meeting time and things on offense, let him do some individual stuff with him, but don't do one day you're with defense, one day you're with offense. Well, I wouldn't do that with him right off the bat. I would wait until probably training camp to start easing him into some offensive stuff. And then maybe preseason, 10 to 20 snaps on a game of offense, And then as the season progresses, you see how he's handling the physical load, and then you can push it in there. But I would just be reluctant. And I think this first-year head coach
who's an offensive guy
would be tempted, use his new toy.
But I also wonder, because he has Brian Thomas, because he has ETN and Tank Bigsby, and you've got all this money invested in Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
And the knock on Trevor Lawrence, I was around a bunch of people with the Jags when they were in London to play the Broncos, was, does he love football? And I know you can say that doesn't matter, but you want your quarterback to love football.
Oh, yeah.
And every great quarterback loves football to some degree.
Which starting quarterback in the NFL you think hates football the most?
It's a great question. Maybe Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, maybe Trevor Lawrence.
Andrew Luck,
oh, he hated it.
I don't know if he hated it, but he was just so good at it and so damn smart. And obviously he likes football enough that he's helping Stanford now.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he eats, sleeps, and there's no question guys like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady love football more than anything.
Well, more than their wives. More than their families.
Yeah. And so I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about who hates it. I don't want to pick on Tua, but he's playing guitar and singing and spending his time doing lots of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Burrow's at the Met Gala, but by all accounts, he doesn't like people, but he likes football.
Shedeur Sanders has a rap album out, or at least a couple singles.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me as much. I guess I don't know how much time he's spending in the studio.
Yeah.
But
well, judging by the quality of the music, not very much. I mean,
that's where, I can't say without question, the world of sports and hip hop, if you ask the people that are the most in the know, the athlete that could easily be just a full-blown hip-hop artist is Damian Lillard. He's put out a bunch of music.
Yeah.
And
he actually performed at a halftime of some all-star game or whatever.
Yeah, he is, if he was a full-time hip-hop artist, he could hold his own and do all the things,
as you could, records. I'm sure.
I don't know about all that, but he's now got a torn Achilles, so he obviously spent a lot of time doing that. Yeah. But he's going to miss an entire season basically, and he's in his 30s. That's a great
way to spend some time when you're injured.
Yeah, I'd love to see if he puts out some sort of real album over the next year.
When I got hurt one of my last years here with the Broncos, early in the season, I tore my groin off the bone. I got put on injured reserve. My season was done, and I started taking guitar lessons from a dude named Brad in Boulder who played bluegrass. And so I drive up there once a week with my acoustic guitar and take some lessons. And it was really cool because it's super depressing to get hurt and have a season-ending injury significant enough to have you just hobbling around, sitting at home alone. You don't realize how isolating it is to have a serious injury in a sport. When you're on a team, everybody's together every day, you're doing all the same stuff. You get hurt, you get pulled out of that circle, you're by yourself doing rehab stuff while everyone's in meetings. It's a really sad time. And so you need something to pass the time and occupy your mind. I picked up guitar, and look at this, 15 years later, I'm still playing it. Because, I'm still not very good at it.
Like a modern-day Jack Johnson.
That's right. All right, so I want to shift gears a little bit away from Travis to the Broncos and the rookie minicamp, but more of a philosophical thing, because last year, BK, the Broncos' leading rusher was Javonte Williams with 513 yards.
Halfway to 1,000.
42nd in the league of 32 teams. So several backs, there were several teams with multiple backs who had more yards than our leading rusher. Okay. And everyone wanted them to run the football more. And the idea was that the running back room wasn't strong enough to support a running attack. But when you look at Sean Payton's history, he's only had 2 different backs run for 1,000 yards as a head coach, 18 seasons as a head coach. Deuce McAllister, his very first season. And then Mark Ingram had 2 years of 1,000 yards and barely over 1,000. This wasn't like an 18-yard, 100-yard season or 1,600 yard. This was like 1,063 yards or like 1,105. That was the top. So my question to you, BK, I know we drafted RJ Harvey. He's projected to, I saw some things today that some folks had him as the number 2 back in the draft. The Broncos had him as the number 2 back in the draft. So presumably they got a back they really, really, really love. But should we expect to see a different philosophy from Sean Payton and handing this guy the ball 20 times a game?
I think it's one of those things where he can tell himself that, hey, we're going to run it, and we just drafted a running back. But his tendencies are what they are. There's a reason that he's always either number 1, never lower than 3 or 5, I don't know, they could be 2 and 4, but like top 3, top 5 in throwing the ball to the backside of the backfield. So guys you mentioned, like Reggie Bush, like Darren Sproles, who are capable of having 1,000 yards. Darren Sproles is a hell of a rusher in college. I get that he's only 5'6", but at K-State, I mean, he ate Big 12 defenses up on the ground and added the return game element in the pro. I mean, he returned in college, and Reggie same way. Like, he was this side of Marshall Faulk, the most dynamic college running back I've ever seen.
Yeah.
With apologies
Heisman
to
Trophy winner
Ashton Genty and even Ricky Williams, his couple years of dominance at Texas. But Reggie could really run the ball. And in the pros, he just did until he got to Miami. He got 1,000 yards. He had 1,000 yards in Detroit. And so Sean can run it on his play sheet. He's going to hear us continue to ask him about it. You're going to have those metrics that say, oh, there were more yards available in the run game than the running backs got. So that's on your running back room, which is ultimately on you and George Payton to some degree. But to think that all of a sudden it's going to be whether it's RJ Harvey or even a combination, but that they're going to run it 35 times a game with running backs, not counting Bo keeping it, designed or otherwise, it just seems unlikely that they're ever going to be truly balanced and running or run heavy, because I think if they would run the ball more against Cincinnati, they'd probably win that game.
That was what I was going to ask, is that, look, Sean Payton has a pretty good track record. He's won a Super Bowl, top 5 offenses pretty much every season he was in New Orleans. That said, and he did that by throwing the ball and spreading it around and doing exactly what you just said, throwing the ball to the running back, not relying on handing the ball off to the running back. But this was in the renaissance of the passing era in the NFL. Over the last several years, passing numbers have declined. And what we saw this year was the more run-dominant teams making it a little further. You looked at the Broncos in the playoffs. Yes, they had a 10-7 season. They were able to surpass expectations. PFF, or as I like to call them, had them ranked as the last roster in the league, 32nd in the league, okay? PFF said Broncos blew everyone's expectations out of the water, 10-7, and went to the playoffs. That said, they went to the playoffs and they ran into a buzzsaw, a playoff-ready offense who was relying on running the football, and their lack of a running game ended up embarrassing them on national TV in the biggest game of the season. They lost 31-7 and were outgained on the ground like 215-79. So my question is, Sean Payton's probably not going to change, but is that going to be to the detriment of the Broncos in this newfangled sort of run-heavy version of the modern NFL?
It feels like potentially, but going back all the way to when your old mentor, Bill Walsh, realized that passing the ball can, quickly to the flats essentially can mimic the run game and take away sometimes the edge players that are going to destroy your tackles. Sean Payton kind of subscribes to that. And I think Peyton Manning did too, to some degree, even though he had Marshall Faulk and then he had Edgerrin James. He had 2 Hall of Fame runners throughout the bulk of his time in Indy. And then it got to the point where it was all Peyton. And even when he got here, the Broncos had to basically force him into Kubiak's offense to get him to run the ball. And the idea is like, look, we can just get more yards more quickly because I know what I'm doing in a passing offense to take advantage of what they're doing. And so I understand where Sean Payton's coming from, in that, like, my offensive play calling is better than just about any defensive coach I'm going to play against. Assuming that my personnel does what they're supposed to do, the players will be open. If the quarterback can get on the ball there, that will gain more yards than the average run play does. And so I think it's a philosophy, because you look at Kyle Shanahan, I think feels like the best example of they're still going to run the ball first. I mean, there's some other teams you could think of, but Jim Harbaugh now with the Chargers, probably to Justin Herbert's detriment in some regards, or maybe just because J.K. Dobbins got hurt. So yeah, I have a hard time believing. I'll throw your question back at you. Do you think that there's a world where we're going to see them 35 runs to 25 passes, 35 running back runs, not or even an RPO, which I'll give you credit as a run play, but not Bo scrambling and running?
No, I don't see that. And sometimes, like, the balance between run and pass is like, you look at it after the fact and you look at, there was 50-50, but then you have to understand the flow of the game that creates it. So if you're able to go up early, for example, by 2 scores, let's say, and you do that by throwing the football in the first half or even the first quarter, and you throw the ball 12 times and you run the ball 3 times, and all of a sudden you're up 14-0. and they can't move the ball. Guess what you do after that? You run the football for the rest of the game. And then after the game, the numbers look like, wow, you really relied on the run. Well, you built a lead and then you ran the ball. And so sometimes those numbers can be misleading. But I think if you're looking at, the flow of a game and the ability to run it on first down for positive yardage matters. If you have a first down run that gets no yards and you come up with 2nd and 10, and then you decide to run it again and get no yards and it's 3rd and 10, then you got a incomplete and you punt, you don't have a chance to get into the rhythm of the game and get any positive numbers going. And so a lot of the times, like the Broncos were near the league lead in 3 and outs last year, which affected their ability to run the football because you don't pick up first downs, you can't do any plays, let alone runs, and then you get behind because that's what happens when you do a lot of 3 and outs. Then you got to throw the ball to catch up. And so there's always context to the numbers and the ratio of run to pass. That said, Sean Payton is going to Sean Payton. You know what I mean? Like he's an ex-quarterback. He threw for 500 yards in a game in college. I don't know if you knew that. He holds the Eastern Illinois record for most passing yards in a game. Tony Romo doesn't hold that record. Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't own that record. Sean Payton does. Mike Shanahan doesn't own that record.
Mike doesn't have that one.
No, Sean Payton does. And so he likes to throw the ball. And look, it doesn't take a genius to see his track record in doing that. And I think sees a guy in Bo Nix that he can do that with. But my concern is that the league has changed. It's harder to throw the ball now. It just is. For whatever reason, these defenses are creating these shell coverages, these 2 deep coverages, and they're keeping everything in front of them. And you see all the underneath stuff happening, but the deep stuff, the seam stuff is a little bit harder to hit these days. Ever since COVID happened, COVID was the high watermark year of the passing game. Why? There was no fans in the stands. And so quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers and all these dudes who knew how to manipulate snap counts and check with me's and see what was happening, they had no opposition on the road. It's like 2-minute drill on the road and it's quiet as a mouse. You can tell your guys what to do.
Right.
It was hilariously easy for offenses that year. You look back at the numbers, every quarterback had like 2 to 3% higher completion percentage that year, higher touchdown to interception ratios, most touchdowns ever thrown, fewest interceptions ever thrown. That was that year. The fans started coming back in the stands the next year, and ever since then, the offensive numbers have been on the decline, and running back numbers have been steadily improving. The passing game hasn't been as effective, and I wonder if that trend is going to continue.
I don't know why defenses would abandon what they're doing, and you got to credit Vic Fangio for really showing this is how you attack a great passing offense when he was the Bears DC going up against the high-powered Chiefs year. Patrick Mahomes wins the MVP in year 2 for him, year 1 as a starter. And then Vic comes here, but everyone is basically running similar versions of his shell coverages to keep stuff in front of you and make you beat us by beating us, not just getting behind us. You're not going to get behind us. And that's probably the metric worth looking at is, where is the deep passing decline? Like, where are we on that scale?
Yeah.
It's got to be low, though.
Yeah. I mean, lack of practice time, not as much off-season training, 1 practice a day instead of 2, just the repetitions when it comes to deep balls. It's the over and over, the connection that you do that you don't get to do as much anymore in the modern NFL because of the CBA rules and just the reality of not practicing as much.
But Bo and Troy Franklin are going to hit it down the left side.
Yeah, one of these days.
I know that Troy caught the only touchdown pass, but it was more of a post route. He's going to hit that left sideline go at some point.
Speaking of touchdown passes, have you heard of Accurate America?
I have indeed.
You never know when and where the hail is going to hit, guys. And when it does, when those summer storms come, the last thing you want to do is get caught scrambling. Make the call before the storm. Before that storm hits, call Accurate America, guys. You see the logo right next to my head. Accurate America is going to partner with you on navigating insurance and provide a quick, professional, and knowledgeable service using the latest technology and 3D modeling. And their work is guaranteed as long as you own your home. Don't scramble at the last minute, guys. Call Accurate America at 303-900-ROOF. That's 303-900-ROOF before the storm. So you mentioned Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, revolutionizing the league lately, and quarterbacks are having to pick apart those defenses and hope that you have guys to break tackles, catch a 3-yard pass and make a guy miss. That's something the Broncos haven't had here in a while. Marvin Mims could kind of emerge as that guy. Let's talk about some of these rookies coming in. And let's start with Pat Bryant because he's the wide receiver. You know, we've been talking a lot about RJ Harvey. Let's talk about Pat Bryant, the 3rd round receiver, right? That was drafted, 6'3", 200-pound kid. Reminds Sean Payton of Michael Thomas.
Well, that's going to be awesome if he can be anywhere near as productive as Michael Thomas. Cortland Sutton, because of the body type, reminded me of Michael Thomas because they're literally exact same measurables at the combine. Cortland was a few hundredths of a second faster in the 40. And you're like, okay, not blazing speed, but could kind of get open. Turns out, you know, he uses his body to get open. And he never really turned into the route runner. I mean, Michael Thomas that year that he caught 149, he looked surgical running routes. Kind of goes back to the Travis Hunter thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting when you talked about the way Jerry Rice approached running routes.
Yeah.
It feels like Travis Hunter is a victim of seeing Jerry Jeudy run routes on Instagram.
Yeah.
Which it's cool. And I get it. It's more movement, but to me, like you said, less movement and everything looking the same.
Yeah.
Who does Travis Hunter mimic at the next level? Be fast because who are the guys that run routes like that right now?
Like
Jerry Rice that are effortless.
Well, I did hear Devontae Adams talking about like how too many receivers are watching Instagram and they need to just make everything look the same. So I think Cooper Kupp is a guy who just understands that everything should look the same coming off the ball. Devontae Adams, of course, it's different when there's a guy in your face. But when you have off coverage, you don't want to take time off the line of scrimmage and do stuff. You want those first 3 steps to look identical. And I think, you know, the offenses that are based more on timing and it requires you to have everything look the same for the first 3 steps because you're supposed to be in a certain spot at a certain time. And if I'm doing some cutesy stuff off the line of scrimmage, I'm not where I'm supposed to be there, and the timing gets screwed up. So I think the more, you know,
the first guy that popped into my head was Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, he does. He doesn't dance a lot on the line.
Yeah,
he gets right into it.
Get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin Jefferson's at the top of most metrics, but I don't feel like he does too much dancing. Guys like Jamar Chase and Higgins.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Jerry Jeudy went to the Pro Bowl. We saw his talent. We saw him open plenty in Denver.
Yeah.
It was the ball wasn't getting to him, and then last year, even with all that stuff, and a number of different quarterbacks, he makes the Pro Bowl. So good on him. But yeah, for when you talk about learning the technique, that just made me think about that. But back to Pat Bryant. This is what I'll say about him. Because you can only believe so many people in the world one way or the other about their grades and whatever. The night after the draft, that Tuesday after the draft, I happened to see Brian Stark. I'm not betraying any trust here. Brian Stark, longtime Broncos college scouting director, at the Nuggets game. He's a lifelong Nuggets fan. He's sitting there. He was coincidentally not wearing Nuggets gear. He was wearing a black shirt. The next day, he gets named assistant GM of the Raiders. So he knew he was getting that job.
Huh.
But I asked him
That's why he wore the black shirt?
Maybe. But I asked him
the black shirts are fairly uncommon. You never see anyone with a black shirt on.
At a Nuggets game, when you are a Nuggets fan, his boys are Nuggets fans. He's there with his wife. His sons are there a couple rows back. I didn't really see him, but I'll presume because the last time I saw them there, they were wearing Nugget stuff. They might just pick the black shirt that day and didn't have a Nugget shirt. But regardless, so I see Starkey, and I ask him just, hey, man, how'd you feel about the draft? As a college scouting director, obviously, he's going to feel really good about it. I was like, the corner made plenty of sense to me. I understand the upside with RJ Harvey, and he's obviously got to be a smart kid if he was a quarterback at Virginia. I said, but where do you come down on the wideout, that a lot of people think y'all overdraft? He's like, he can really play. Mm-hmm. And so he doesn't need to go out of his way. I mean, he's just talking with me. He doesn't, I wasn't reporting anything, but he knew he was going to the Raiders the next day. And it sounded sincere enough that it wasn't like, oh yeah, we missed on that, or that's going to be a long shot. It was, that guy is going to be a problem for the Raiders now. I think me as the assistant GM, like, he's like, he can really play. So
4.6, I guess, guy. And I heard some people, being concerned about that speed. That's not a problem. I mean, there's the track.
Jerry Rice ran 4.6.
Yeah, exactly. Anquan Bolden was pretty slow-footed as far as a receiver goes, and one of the most productive receivers you can find. It's about body control, understanding zones, understanding how to attack the ball in space, using your hands, and putting your body in position to catch the football, and also mentally understanding where you're supposed to be. And the thing I like about Pat is are you the one who said this? If you want the rock, you got to block. Or something
he says that? you gotta block to get the rock.
Yeah, and they're losing little Jordan Humphrey.
If you block, you get the rock. If you block, you get the rock.
And little Jordan Humphrey, I saw this stat, played 52% of the snaps last year.
He was often the starting wide receiver
He
opposite
was.
of Cortland Sutton.
And it's because he can block. And it's because he's a big physical presence there. And so,
He's really good at blocking in the short passing game
yeah.
since they aren't running.
Yeah. And you got to get out there and spring your guy.
Yeah, which
And
he
so-
did. Actually, LJ was great at that.
Yeah.
You'd see him down the field.
Yeah. So people who like crap on LJ Humphrey, I scoff at that because they don't realize the little things that he did to make this team successful. This was a team who made the playoffs for the first time in a decade. LJ Humphrey was a big reason why. And so he's going to be, his snaps are going to have to be filled by someone. And I know, Devon Vele, Troy Franklin want to be that guy, but Pat Bryant also going to be trying to be that guy. And so they're going to get to compete, which is what camp is all about. Mini camp starts today. And when does media availability start over there, BK?
So we haven't heard yet, but we'll just use past examples, past seasons as our template. The last 2 years under Sean Payton, the rookies have talked on the Saturday of the 3-day mini camp. So they get into town probably last night, start today, do some stuff today, tomorrow, Saturday, and they might not even be on the field today other than like workout, nothing football on the field.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Saturday we'll get to talk to all the rookies that are here. They usually, because they like to make things challenging for us, we'll put 1 or 2 guys on the podium while everyone else is talking at almost the same time.
Oh,
Or they'll bring a guy out, so it just kind of is what it is. Sean Payton will talk. And then unless, and I don't know if they've changed this rule yet, but they hadn't for a while, unless you have to go back to school because you're on a quarter system or whatever, felt like Stanford and Oregon guys would always have to leave. They just stay here and they're just integrated into the program phase. They're probably at phase 2 right now. Starting, early next week, and then we'll
running
get
and
to
lifting, baby.
We'll get to talk to a veteran or two. Likely, it'll be the first time we meet Dre Greenlaw, although he's dealing with the injury. Hufanga, Evan Ingram in the coming weeks.
Yeah,
as well as Sean Payton.
Well, it's exciting. Broncos season basically starts the minute the Nuggets season ends, right? And when the Avs are already out, but the Nuggets tied 1-1. You want to tell us about your trip there? You were just in Oklahoma City for that blowout. BK, you've been covering a lot of sports here for Gorilla, wearing a lot of different hats. We appreciate you jumping on off field. But if you want to break down what your trip was like in Oklahoma City.
Well, so game 1 went a lot better than game 2, at least in the perspective of the Nuggets. It was just fun to be in an arena that is super loud. As I've told lots of other people, I don't know if you caught this, they missed the opportunity to call it Thunderdome.
Oh.
And they call it Loud City, which is dumb.
Loud City?
Loud City.
That is lame.
Very
I'm
lame.
sorry.
Very lame. It says Loud City really big. Their catering company is Loud City.
Loud City.
It's dumb. They missed an opportunity because Thunderdome isn't trademarked.
Hmm.
And so they're building a new arena right next door that maybe they'll call that Thunderdome. They'll get it right this time. Or that'll be Loud City too, still louder. I don't know. But it only has 1 row of luxury boxes, so the second level gets on you quick. So it's kind of compact and it is loud. And so when Aaron Gordon hit that shot, to see 19,000 people just stunned silent.
Yeah.
And look, we know there's lots of great Nuggets fans. I don't know how many there are in Oklahoma City. I mean, I saw a few and some friends and family of the team, obviously. But it's not like when you go to LA and there's just more Nuggets fans or Phoenix. And so you could hear a pin drop. I mean, you could hear the Nuggets celebrating. Everyone else was just stunned silent.
Wow.
And then you just didn't know what game 2 would be. You thought OKC would make adjustments.
Yeah.
And you could tell from the get-go, like it was 2-0, then all of a sudden it's 7-2, it's 11-4, and then it's 34-14.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, when do you wave the white flag? And David Adelman, the interim head coach, played the starters the whole third quarter. And I thought, like, if you couldn't get it to 20 around like at least by the 6-minute mark, but even before that, like just shut them down.
Yeah.
But he kept most of them in.
That's why they pay him the big bucks, man.
Well,
Most secure head coaching job in the league right now, Mr. Adelman. No, it's fine.
Well, we'll see. If Joker says that's who he wants, then it becomes very secure real quick.
You think so? Joker's just who he says.
I think if he says that,
they get.
Josh would have a hard time. Josh and Sam Kroenke would have a hard time saying, "Oh no, we're going to go get Mike Budenholzer, who's just been fired twice in the last 3 years, but he has a ring," or Frank Vogel. Like those guys are different versions of Michael Malone.
Yeah.
So David Adelman is a younger coach that the players seem to really respond to, and we'll see how they've responded, whether it was Michael Malone or David Adelman, well after losses. We saw it last round with the loss to the Clippers. in game 3. Saw it last year after getting blown out by Minnesota here in game 2. They go to Minnesota, win game 3, win game 4 there.
Yep.
So they seem to do better when the expectations are lower.
Mm.
So it feels like,
Well, now the expectations are high.
well, but they dipped a little.
Yeah, but from yesterday. But they're coming home,
Yeah.
and the expectation is to win the freaking series now,
Win
right?
the series. I imagine we'll see some Broncos types at some of these next couple of games. Which saw Justin Simmons, who's in town working out. He lives here in the off season. Saw Cortland Sutton.
There'll be one Bronco type there tomorrow.
Oh, you're gonna be
I'm
there?
going to go to the game.
Nice.
Yeah,
where
dude.
you going? Or where you sit?
A buddy of mine is got the tickets. I'm not exactly sure. I'll share them with you later, and you can tell me where to go, what to do, who to talk to, and I'll drop your name and I'll see where that gets me.
Probably get you in line for the pretzels. That's probably about it.
All right. Maybe an extra cheese for the pretzels.
No, but it'd be good. I can get you a second thing of cheese.
Oh, cool.
They do this thing at the Nuggets game where it's never a Nuggets. I mean, I don't know if there's been a former Nuggets player, but you shoot the free throw. We need to get you doing that.
Yeah, dude.
You shoot the free throw pregame, and they need 80 or 41 of them plus playoffs. So I don't know who else they have lined up.
I don't know if I'm the guy.
So
man.
you get trust me, you're much more famous than some of the people they've had. Now
Okay.
they also had in back-to-back games, Cortland Sutton, a college basketball player, knocked it down, and then Vinny Castilla in game 7, baseball player, of the more home runs than any Mexican-born player ever, and special advisor to the Rockies. Vinny hit the free throw as well.
Wow.
And so I saw him after. I was like, I didn't see the shot. He goes, "I'm built different, dog." I was like, all right.
He said that.
That's exactly what he said.
I made a free throw.
But
Dude,
hey, it's a rubber ball. It's not a
it's
leather
not a real
ball.
basketball?
No, it's
Why
a
don't
rubber.
They give him a basketball?
I don't know. They
That's
sign it and they give it away,
okay.
but it's So maybe we get you on that. I'm just saying that the bar has been raised because I see everybody miss, including our pal Dave Logan, who was a college basketball player and got drafted in the NBA.
How badly did he miss?
Not bad, but he's still mad about it 4 years later.
Yeah,
or
I think it's like more. It's got to look decent. If it misses, it misses. If it goes off the rim, back rim, whatever. But if you airball that thing,
and it's a weird depth perception because most people aren't used to shooting in arenas, even if you play a lot.
Yeah.
So, but we got to get you on that list. I'll find out. I'll talk to the game ops people.
BK, make it happen, man. Just add it to the list of things you got to do.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. But right now, the one thing we can circle right back around to where we started with Adam Schefter retweeting you.
Yeah. Yep. That was a special
He
day.
let's take Taylor Swift off the list. He has the biggest follower count of anyone in the NFL.
Yeah.
Got to take Sierra off the list too.
Yeah.
Anyone associated with the NFL that really is part of the NFL. He has more Twitter followers than any player, than any team, double any team. He has 12 to 14. He might be up to 14 million. And most teams are still stuck between 5 and 6 or less.
Yeah.
Same with most players.
He's a star maker, man. We'll
see what happens to your Twitter other than people getting mad about Travis going to college.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. Twitter just kind of brings out the trolls.
It does.
But we appreciate you guys for following along with us today. He's Brandon Krisztal, and I just want to thank you for coming fresh off the plane. Didn't get a lot of sleep. Came in here and crushed the show.
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Doing everything around here. I'm Nate Jackson. This has been Off Field. We'll see you guys next time on Gorilla Sports. Later.